your darkest night. Hold on to the light, and please know, you got the victory. In my heart, I got the victory. On my job, I got it. In my family, I got the victory. In my relationship, I got the victory. When I pray every day, I got the victory. When I walk, what I talk, when I practice, what I preach. When I trust in God, victory.
Whether in stress, doubts, or tears, just give thanks and bless your fears. Be sure to remember, love reveals the truth of life, and joy, yes, joy is the angel's voice. Acceptance breeds harmony, and forgiveness is what sets us free. I let my good become multiplied as the divine unfolds in my life. Yes, it is good. It is God, this miracle divine. Oh, yes, this miracle divine. I now command the multitude of doubts and fears flooding into my mind to be quiet as divine miracle takes place in my life. I let all the good that I possess become multiplied as divine love acts upon my faith, bringing into my experience all that is good for mine and our well-being. Yes, it is good. Yes. whether in stress, doubt, or tears, just give thanks and bless your fears. Be sure to remember, love reveals the truth of life, and joy, yes, joy is the angel's voice. Acceptance breeds harmony, and forgiveness is what sets us free. I'll let my good become multiplied as the divine unfolds in my life. Yes, it is good. It is God, this miracle divine. Oh, yes, it's a miracle divine. It's a miracle divine.
Wow, this must be heart and soul. Oh, oops, my prop
It's still
just
heart and soul.
dropped. Thank you, Reverend Angelo. I'm going to ask you to stand. I'm going to ask you to take just a moment and look around the room. And I want you to see the miracle divine. I want you to look at and reach your hands out to one another and simply say, I see you. I love you. I appreciate you. And I thank God for you. Now we're all going to turn towards those bright lights and raise our hand and say the same thing to those that are watching. We see you. We feel you. We love you. We thank God for you. Now look at the women in the room. Look at the women in the room and reach out your hands and say, we see you. We appreciate you. We thank God for you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. This is one of those Sunday mornings where I was so listening to the music and so being inspired by what was being said, I almost forgot that I was speaking. And it's one of those situations where anytime I walk into the room, I simply do this prayer to say, may my thoughts be your thoughts. My actions be your actions. May my words be the words that the divine has laid upon me to share. And what I want to say with it, and I was so stirred by our prayer and care ministry. And I kept hearing Spirit whisper, there's someone in this room that needs prayer today. There's a mother in this room that really needs prayer today. So what I want you to know is do not leave here today without being prayed up. Even if you don't have an occasion to go to the prayer room following church, drop your prayer request in the box. Why? Because this stuff works. Prayer works. Now, I am also so excited to be here to launch the month that we're paying tribute to women. And I have some thoughts about that. I have been one of those men that have always surrounded myself by powerful women. Never wanted to marry one, but that's okay. If you know, you know. And somebody just whispered it to somebody else. So that's the good news about that. But I have been smart enough to pay attention. And it's like they say that children never listen, but they watch. And I remember from an early age, I watched my mother. Now, if you can imagine, we're going to go back like Sophia and the Golden Girls. Picture it, 1933. McKinley High School, Winchester, Indiana. There's Helen and Frances and Geraldine and Winifred. Now, what are the thoughts that there be two Winifreds and two Helens amongst the same prayer group? But I was blessed because one of those Winifreds was my mother. And these 6 women were best friends in high school. And when it came time to graduate, they made a commitment together that they were going to get together at least once a month to keep that friendship alive. Now, these women, Winifred and Helen and Frances and Geraldine, went to their 60th high school reunion in 1993, and guess what? They were the only 6 women still alive. But they had gotten together once a month for 60 years. And they were the allies for one another. They were the advocates for one another. And I'm sure there were some 3 a.m. phone calls that said, bring the shovel and a rug. And they were the co-conspirators for one another. These group of women put their money together and bought a cottage at Lake Wawasee in northern Indiana that they bought, not their husbands. These 6 women did it. And for many summers, that's where we went every summer, to Lake Wawasee to be together with these 6 women. And it was amazing to watch their lives and how they had one another's back. And they really taught me about the cohesiveness of friendship and the value of friendship. And of course, you have often heard me talk about my first spiritual teacher, which was Grandmother Kaufman, who taught me to really know that there's something more to this life. You know, one of the miracles in the song that I'm reminded of is something that I heard about. It's no accident that we're all here. And if you looked at science and you thought about nothing else other than gravity, that thing that holds us grounded, if we had 1 less % of gravity to hold us to this earth, the earth would implode. If we had 1% more gravity to connect us to this earth, the earth would explode. There's no accident that we're here. This is not random stuff that we're up to. We, each and every one of us, have been called to know that there's something much more. And in this level of consciousness that we talk about, where we look at life happens to us, we take dominion, we take some charge. It's the women who teach us how to do that. If we are to create a world that works for all, it's going to be the women leading the way. And I know that's the women that are the myth busters. And I also know, and I know that I'm not getting political here, but as that child who just kind of observes things, I know that some of these old boys, they're not afraid of Joe Biden's age. They're afraid of who's going to replace Joe Biden if something happens. If you know what I mean, explain it to someone else who doesn't. Because we're not to be political from the pulpit. But surround yourself with powerful women. Surround yourself with powerful women. I've worked in a secular career simultaneous to my theological career as an executive in human resources. And the best CEOs that I ever worked for or with were women. The very first woman that I worked with, imagine being a 24-year-old moving from Indiana to California, and I go to work for Bank of Tokyo, which was California First Bank at the time. My job was to be a personnel, that's back in the day when we used the word personnel, assistant. And my boss was a woman by the name of Terry LaPierre. Beautiful name. Her husband was a French journalist who worked for the San Francisco Chronicle. But she was born in Japan because California First Bank was owned by the Bank of Tokyo. Now again, as that observer, I got to witness some stuff. In the Bank of Tokyo, in the Japanese culture, a Japanese woman could not go any higher than the rank than assistant vice president. Caucasian women could become a vice president, but not Japanese women. One of the things that was unique in this role is Terry LaPierre, her husband, had recently made his transition. She was the assistant vice president of human resources, and it was her job to oversee recruitment. Well, we had 110 branches throughout California, most of them in the Los Angeles area. So because of her culture, she could not travel alone. Guess who got to go? So we're all prepared for this first trip to Southern California. Now, we could have gone to the Long Beach branch. We could have gone to the Huntington Beach branch. We could have gone to downtown LA. But Terry said, you know, we have an office in Beverly Hills. They can come to us there. So we got to go to Beverly Hills, and as I was booking the reservations, I was looking at the Holiday Inn, I was looking at the Crown Plaza, and Terry goes, well, you know, there is this hotel called the Beverly Wilshire. We could go there. And so we would go and we would stay at the Beverly Wilshire. We would recruit out of the Rodeo Drive branch of the bank, and we would go to dinner at the Brown Derby. We would go to dinner at Romanoff's. And what I didn't know is these were the things that she used to do with her husband that she couldn't do anymore. But she showed me a world that I had no idea existed and how we got to do things. And she really taught me how to work through even the Japanese management system. She said, learn a few words of Japanese. And so what would happen if someone would get to the point that I could recognize phrases that were repeated? So one of the things that would happen if somebody would bring me a report, I would thank them in Japanese. Then they never spoke Japanese in my presence, just in case I really knew more Japanese. And the day that they sent out the memo that's told the Filipino folks that worked in the data processing center that they could no longer speak Tongala at the workplace, I said, you really can't administer that. If you did, you would have to stop speaking Japanese in the executive management meetings. They tore the paper up. But it was Terry LaPierre who taught me how to negotiate that and to move through that. And it was my first experience of realizing that it's the women that know how to build consensus. And it's women who know how to identify what is for the greater good and how to figure it out. So then I got promoted, went to work for another company called QRS, Quick Response Services, and I worked for Tanya Amachayev. Tanya Amachayev was the first woman CEO of an electronic data company in the United States. Tanya and I built QRS from 35 employees to 900 employees within 4 years. If you're familiar with the city of Richmond and the Marina Bay Parkway, where the Richmond City Hall is, those 3 buildings were buildings that QRS built at the time that Tanya and I were there. And she was that profound teacher that really mentored me. She was the first one that was a mentor. And I always wanted to impress her. I always wanted to do good. And so I would be so prepared whenever I would go into a board meeting or go into an executive meeting to meet with her, because now I'm management. And I wanted to be an impression, make a good impression. So I would go in and I would do this and that and say this and that and get the 10 top things. And she would always bring up the one thing that I missed. And I would go back to my desk kind of dejected and committed to doing it better the next time around. And then one day, when I went to leave her office, she goes, "Stop. I'm sensing something here." And I said, well, I just want to get it all right. I present this, I come up with that, I do 10 things and you always find the 11th thing. And she said, "Jack, that's my job as the CEO. My job is to see the one thing that was missing. But we're a team. I count on you to do those 10 things." That shifted everything. But what it built was a level of trust. And I saw that play out one day because, simultaneously, I'm studying world religions at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley. And I happened to be enmeshed in world religions and the similarities. Everybody prays, everybody has music, and part of what they were talking at that particular point in time was the culture in India and the sect system that existed, and how the Brahmins were the highest sect and the agricultural were the lowest sect. And the next day, look at God being God, as Brandis McKenzie would say. I'm sitting there and we're in an executive meeting, and Vijay Budapalli was promoted to be vice president of research and development. And everybody clapped. And I get back to my desk, and Gopi Sankar Subramani came in and said, "It has been wonderful working for QRS. I must respectively resign. Thank you for your time." And Tanya was like, "Wait a minute, what's wrong?" I said, "Tanya, I know something. It's in his name. Gopi Sankarasu Brahmani. He cannot work for Vijay Buddhapali. Vijay Buddhapali was a part of the agricultural sect. Gopi was a part of the Brahmin sect. You must immediately promote Vijay if you're going to promote Gopi." I can never sell that to a board of directors. Trust me, it will work. She did it, and it worked. And I got to see this trust, this relationship, this bond. And then I moved on. I went to work for a company called Muir Medical Group. I was a vice president of operations, worked for 750 physicians. This amazing woman by the name of Udi, I'm blanking out her last name right now. Udi was the model for The Devil Wears Prada. The Meryl Streep character, if you can imagine. But I found a way in. I found a way in, and I talked to her about everything that I had been taught thus far about trust and collaboration and consensus building. And she got it because she was a nurse by profession and not a physician. And so she had always dealt with that whole stigma within the medical profession of the nurse is not quite a doctor. But yet she was in charge of 750 doctors. Now, she made it work, but it took a partnership. And one of the things that I got to see was this great collaboration between us until one day we got to this conversation where we had this idea of where she had come from and where I had come from. And, you know, one of the funny things of the story that she would tell, and this gives you a little bit of insight, she would never go to a potluck dinner. And I go, well, why won't you, you know, it's a camaraderie, the people are together, why not? And she goes, I was a visiting nurse. I have been in people's homes. I have been in their kitchens. I am never eating in a potluck again. And that was just kind of and so I had to find a way to humanize this experience and show her how to be with folks and to celebrate folks. And she got it. And I thought, is she paying attention? And then we had the occasion, just as my career was about to wind up and I was going to retire and go to Fresno. We had an occasion where we accidentally discovered that the controller was, shall we say, doing some things that controllers should not be doing. And not only had the controller removed all the executives from the signers of the checking account, but we had to immediately let this controller go. Well, who does the controller blame when caught? Welcome to my world. Apparently, I had triggered homosexual panic in the controller. His brother had been gay and had committed suicide. So seeing me in a position of power put him over the edge. And when we let him go, that's what he took to court, and it finally went to mediation. Guess what? He won. Guess who was my ally and my advocate? Udi. She said, you know, this is why we have insurance. Sometimes it's just not right, but this is why we have insurance. Settled for $500,000. Now, those doctors would have done something differently. They would have gotten rid of me and kept the controller because they admired his business savvy. They admired the investments that he had made. They would have corrected the error for sure. But it's the women that have figured it out. It's the women that have figured it out. And I looked at the AIDS epidemic of the 80s. Now, when I first moved to San Francisco and was a part of the LGBTQ plus community, it was very discriminatory. Men didn't hang with women. Didn't happen. But when the AIDS pandemic happened, guess who became the caretakers? The lesbian community stepped up and said, we got this. We'll show you how to do it. And again, I'm hanging with them. I get who the caretakers are. I get who the healers are. I get who came here to show us the possibility of how you do create a world that works for all. It's the women. It's the women that do that. It's the women who visit their sons and husbands in prison. The men never go see the women that are incarcerated in prison. It's the women who have a sense of how to get things done. It's the women that, for whatever reason, have always had to rise up and be the demonstration of how to take dominion over any situation. Every situation. It's no accident that the women were the teachers. Naturally, they're called to that, to show. It's women that are the healers. We know that. We know that. And so we appreciate that. We see that. When I started our focus ministry of Elder Pride, I wanted to reach out and help that community do whatever it takes to age forward with grace and ease. Who do you think my leadership council is? It's the women. It's the Betty Harris. It's the Jamie Powers. It's the Sandria Jennings. It's the Kiki. It's the Camille Kane. It is the women who said, we can get this done and do this thing, so I have to lift up their names. I would not be who I am today had it not been for the women that have been my ally, my advocates, and my co-conspirators. We have got to get that message to the men. We have got to get that message to the children. If we are going to make it, it is going to be that Harriet Tubman DNA that is within each and every woman, because there is only one of us. That's what we know. Now, there is one other woman.
That's right.
If I only got to meet one powerful woman in my life, I am internally grateful that that woman is the Reverend Dr. Andrea Earl. I am smart enough to know I have hooked my rope to that shining star that is the Reverend Dr. Andriette Earl, who doesn't really like to be acknowledged and praised a lot. I got that. But I'm smart enough to know that it is by no accident that I got to meet her some 40 years ago. She has taught me how to be the best ally that I can be. And I got to see it. I didn't necessarily hear it. I got to watch it in action. I got to watch her in action. And she gave me the most powerful words that I've ever used in any corporate sentence, situation or conversation in a practitioner session or any other time when she first said, and I remembered it, "Oh, tell me a little bit more about that." Because that gets people talking. That gets them seeing. That gets them an opportunity to understand what's going on. So I get that everything that I have learned from Winifred and Helen and Frances and Geraldine, from Grandma Kaufman to Tanya Amachev to Terry LaPierre to Udi, all prepared me for the last 15 years of the work that we have done here at Heart and Soul Center of Light. So I stand on the shoulders of these giants of women that have risen up, showed us how to activate our calling to create that world that works for everyone. So I want you to think of a woman in your life right now that you lift up. Who are your Udis? Who are your Tanya Amachayevs? Who are the women in your life that you want to lift up and praise this month? Think about them. Think about them. You know, it's smart to hang with women. Back in 2011, when I had to take 20 teenagers to China for a theater thing, I wasn't going alone. I wasn't going to do that. I had to take the Brannis McKenzie with me because I know she has been some places, seen some things, and done some things. And we got it done. Know who you are hanging with. Hang with the women. Recognize the women that are doing great stuff. Your star will not be diminished when you empower them and their stardom. Everybody's light only gets brighter. Everybody's only gets a little bit more sparkle to it because it rubs off. But I want you today to pray for the women in your life. They've been praying for you without even saying so. They have been praying for you without you even asking for it. They have been praying for your highest and best, even before they knew to put those words to it. It's your turn to pray for them. It's your turn to lift them up and to say how grateful you are for them. Why? Because the world needs more love. Love is what is required. And it is the love that these women have always brought forth unconditionally.